Strange Letter from a Friend in Prison. Written by Zacharius Frost. An old friend of mine has been serving a lengthy sentence out in a prison in the western United States. He's been there almost 3 years now, and has at least another 5 before he's up for parole. He and I have always been good friends, but a few years back, he really got caught up with the wrong crowd. I don't know the exact details of his case, but he was convicted of aiding and abetting an armed robbery. My friend was the getaway driver, and his accomplices apparently made a mistake which resulted in severe injuries for the shop owner. I know that what my friend has done was wrong, and I'm not here to defend him for what he did. He himself had admitted to his guilt and expressed a great deal of remorse for his actions. He's not a bad person, but he is incredibly gullible. Always has been. When we were younger, I once convinced him that flushing a toilet while still sitting on it could rip out your intestines. He believed it for almost 10 years. I have no doubt that he was talked into the job he took part in, but it's his deal to reconcile now. He's also not what I would call the overly imaginative type, which is why the letter he sent me has me quite intrigued. I know that the isolation and boredom can do things to a person's mind, but from the things he wrote, I can tell it's more than that. The following is the letter my friend sent me in its entirety. As far as I know, it's been seen only by me.
Dear Zach, good to hear from you again. I've been good, man, just doing the usual, chillin' and killing time. It's funny, man. You always hear how tough prison is and shit, but no one ever talks about how damn boring it is. That's the worst part for me. Talked to my old man the other day, so at least there's some progress on that end. I know he's still really pissed at me, but at least he's willing to talk now. How's your family doing? I remember you saying your son Ben is 8 now, right? That's crazy, man. Gotta get him playing football, just like us back in the day, huh? I still remember that game sophomore year when we beat Lincoln on homecoming. Damn, that was a crazy night. It's crazy how fast the time goes. But hey, man, I got something I want to talk to you about today. I'm not really sure exactly how to explain this. And shit, maybe I'm just reading too much into it or something. But I remember you always used to enjoy the sort of spooky shit. So maybe you'll figure out what's going on. Okay, so get this. About a week ago, I was in my cell with my bunkmate, Beto, when some new arrivals came in. And there were 4 of them. 2 Hispanic dudes, and a black guy, and a little white dude. I promise, this ain't a joke about a porno. Just hear me out. The white guy stood out right away to me. He was small, maybe 5'6" and 140 pounds at the most. Super scrawny. Looked more like a hardcore video game player than he did a hardened criminal. He had these deep bags under his eyes, and teeth that looked almost jagged, like they were sharp or something. He was visibly shaking, eyes open wide, looking like he was about to piss himself. You could almost smell the fear rolling off him. Dude stuck out like a sore thumb amongst the other guys who were brought in with him. I thought he was just some crackhead, and maybe he is, but now I think there's more to it than that. I almost felt bad for the dude at first, knowing that he was a prime target to get punked by one of the older guys on the block. It's the pecking order, and guys in here will jump on any weaknesses they can see. That dude looked like a lamb in a pack of wolves. So the guards started showing them the layout and telling them all the basic protocols and whatnot. The 4 guys are all clutching their shower gear and shoes, scouting out their new environment. Meanwhile, all of us in our cells are eyeing them as they walk around. One by one, they were shown to each of their cells, with the skinny kid being the last one. He actually got appointed to a cell that was occupied by another friend of mine, Victor. The guards opened up the cell, and old Skinny wandered inside. The guard shut the door behind him, and everything sort of just returned to normal.
Something ain't right with that fool.
My cellmate Beto suddenly spoke. His arms were crossed and eyes sharpened as he sat on his bunk. What do you mean? Beto put a hand up to his chin and just shook his head.
His eyes ain't right.
I asked Beto what he meant by that, but he didn't say any more. I looked back to the cell the skinny dude had gone into, but saw nothing there. A couple of hours later, and our cells got released to the cafeteria for lunch. By that point, I had sort of forgotten about the new arrivals. I got my tray and the usual pile of slop they call food, and sat down with Beto and the rest of the crew. Our group was just eating and talking about random shit when Victor came and sat down with us. I gave him a nod, but I noticed that there was something different about him. His eyes were like frantic, like he was on the lookout for something about to go down.
What up, Victor?
Beto asked as he folded his hands. I guess I wasn't the only one who had noticed the expression on Victor's face.
Sup?
Victor quickly replied, trying to hide what I then recognized as nervousness. His attempt didn't elude any of us though.
You good?
Beto asked. Victor just nodded and took a bite of green beans.
Saw you get a new celly this morning.
Another guy, Ramon, spoke up. Victor shot him a look that could kill. He then shook his head and scoffed.
Fuck that fool.
Victor took another bite. Nobody else pressed the issue. It was weird seeing Victor, a guy whose expression was normally hard as concrete, look so clearly unnerved. For obvious reasons, though, we didn't ask him to open up about his feelings anymore. The table was mostly quiet after that, with all of us just eating and making random jokes. At some point, I took a quick glance around. That's when I saw him. That same scrawny white dude, sitting all by himself at a table on the other side of the room. Dude looked really tired, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His eyes were like heavy, but also wide like a deer in headlights. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but something about them made me feel really uneasy. He was just sitting there, full tray in front of him, without taking a single bite. I looked over once or twice, and then I saw someone approach him. It was Dentist, this big-ass black dude from another block. We call him Dentist cause that motherfucker has maybe 6 teeth in total. I guess it's what you call an ironic nickname. So Dentist walks right up to the guy and sits down in front of him. White dude doesn't even bother looking up at him. I saw Dentist say something to him, but our table was too far away for me to hear it. Dentist kept talking to him, but the white guy doesn't once look up to even acknowledge he's there. Finally, I guess Dentist got tired of being ignored, because I saw him grunt and then lean forward. He grabbed the spoon from the white guy's tray and takes a big old bite of his mashed potatoes. He just stared at him as he chewed the bite in his mouth, but the white guy didn't budge. Finally, I guess Dentist grew tired of the lack of response and rose to leave. That's when the white kid did something I never would have thought. His arms shot out, quick as a cobra strike, grabbing the wrist of Dentist. The entire cafeteria seemed to freeze as it happened. Things got so quiet, I swear, you could have heard a mouse fart. Dentist looked back to him, his other fist clenched up tight. The white kid didn't so much as flinch. They both just stared at each other for what seemed like a minute straight. I then saw the kid say something, but in a whisper, and I couldn't make out what it was. I thought for sure Dentist was about to eat him alive. But then he turned, ripped free from the kid's grip, and walked away. The guards had begun to gather close, but they stopped as the two separated themselves. I saw the kid's eyes again then, narrow and manic, looking like a cornered dog. He then just lowered his head and continued staring down at the table, and things returned to normal. The rest of the day went by as usual. and at night we all returned to our cells. The guards declared lights out over the intercom a while later, and one by one the block's lights went dark. I nestled into my bunk and before long heard the sounds of Beto snoring. I get insomnia pretty bad in here sometimes, and that night was one of the many times it returned. I was in my bunk just laying there, thinking and trying to force myself to sleep, when I heard it. It was a hushed whisper, mumbling coming from somewhere on the block. I adjusted my head on the pillow to try and hear better, but couldn't understand the whispering or where they were coming from. The policy around here is strict, and you aren't supposed to turn on the lights of your cell during sleeping hours unless there is an emergency. You also aren't supposed to really talk. Outside of our cells, there is a single guard in the center of the room on the second floor. Dude spends most of his time staring at his phone and not paying much attention, and usually that's because he doesn't really need to. That night was very different though. The whispering continued, but I still wasn't able to make out where they were coming from. Suddenly, as I'm sitting in my bed, I see something down the hall. It looked like a person just standing motionless, but whoever it was outside their cell. Obviously, no inmates are allowed out of their cells at night, and I knew it wasn't a guard making rounds, because he didn't have a flashlight. I sat up a bit more and tried to get a better look. I then saw the shadow of the person walking down the hall. Part of me feels like I hallucinated the sight, like the darkness was just playing tricks on my mind. But I know what happened next was not a trick. The whispering suddenly stopped, and the room fell completely silent once again. The air seemed a lot colder in that moment for some reason, but maybe that was just my imagination too. Then the screaming began. A loud, terrified scream suddenly pierced the silence and split the room from down the hall. I felt my heart skip a beat as the deafening shriek rattled down the room again and again. Beto jumped in his bunk so quick I thought he was going to fall onto the floor. Now I've heard people scream from pain before. An old homie of mine got shot in the thigh at a house party one night. He screamed a lot, and I have no doubt it was from the immense pain. But it was also different from the screaming that night. That scream was not from pain, but from fear. Like they were absolutely terrified beyond words. It must have gone on for at least 15 seconds before the lights in the block turned on.
The fuck is that?
Beto grumbled as two guards came charging down the stairs. They ran down the corridor towards the area where I had seen the person walking earlier. A huge commotion then began as annoyed inmates awoke to the sounds of the horrendous screaming. More guards soon came into the room and continued to where the others had gone. Not long after that, a group of guys wheeling a stretcher came in as well. By that point, all of us were pretty much standing around the bars trying to see what the hell was going on. The screams finally stopped at some point during the madness, but the atmosphere remained tense. A couple minutes later, and the guys with the gurney came back, with someone strapped onto it. And I do mean strapped. His hands and feet were bound, and a gag was placed over his mouth. I recognized him immediately as Dentist. He was almost like catatonic. Is that the right word? Like he was shaking so violently, I swear he was having a seizure or something. I don't think his eyes blinked once as they wheeled him by. The guards too looked real nervous as they passed. Everyone was in a bit of a frenzy after that, with lots of gossip and shit between cells. One of the guards returned a few minutes later and ordered everyone to quiet down and go back to bed. Somebody asked him what happened to Dentist. The guard only said it was a medical issue and refused to clarify beyond that. It took a while, but things eventually quieted back down. It probably goes without saying, but I didn't get much sleep that night. That was about a week ago, and Dentist has yet to return. Every time someone asks about him, the guards just say that he's injured and will take some time to recover. I don't know what the hell to make of all this, and neither does Beto, Victor, or anyone else I've talked to. Victor doesn't like to talk about it much, but he did tell me one thing he noticed about his new bunkmate. He saw the guy take his shirt off one time, said he's got like these weird-ass tattoos on his back. Victor doesn't think it's gang affiliated or anything like that, and says he's never seen anything like them before. He says they don't even look like tattoos, but more like brands. The thing is, man, I would normally just write all of this off as someone who somehow managed to get out of their cell at night or something, you know? Can't tell the guards about it though, because if it is that, then whoever it was may look at me as a rat. I really don't think that's the case though. The reason I decided to write you about this in the first place is because last night, I saw that same person again. It was late at night and my insomnia was in full swing once again. Something then caught my eye down the hallway. It looked like a person, but it was so dark it was hard to tell. He was just standing there, motionless. Same spot as the other night. There was a bit of light coming from the guard's room up above. The person should have been at least slightly illuminated, but he wasn't. He looked darker even than the shadows around him. I just stared for a while, unsure whether my mind was playing tricks on me, or if what I was seeing was actually there. I finally blinked, and when I looked back, he was gone. Just vanished in a literal blink of an eye. I don't know whether I'm going insane, or maybe just suffering from cabin fever or something, but the block seems a lot quieter than usual. It's like everyone here senses something isn't right, but no one's talking about it. Even the guards seem like they feel it, like they're constantly on the edge. Shit is weird, man, and I really don't know what to make of any of this. I thought maybe you might have some advice or some idea on what the hell happened to Dentist. I'm gonna try and learn more if I can, and if I don't write back, well, I guess you'll know why. Anyways, hope all is good with you, man, and hope to hear from you again soon. Robbie.
I'm really not sure what to make of Robbie's letter, but I wrote him back, so I'm hoping to get an update at some point. It all sounds very strange, and I'm going to try and learn more if I can. I hope he's alright, but I suppose all I can really do is wait for his response. I'll update as soon as I hear back from him.